Hey everyone, welcome to our math segment. So this is Divya and you're watching Trend Brain. So I know you're very curious about the math segment and you want to know about what is Montessori math, what are the different activities that we use it, why is it considered to be as the most unique and the most beautiful approach to introduce to children right from the early ages, right? So in this segment, I thought I would give you a helpful place to start and share the sequences of how we work with these math materials in our classes or in our training programs. Now, when you work on the sequence of these materials and when you have a proper activity and a lesson plan, that's going to be really helpful for your training program. This lesson plan is very useful for all the students who've taken up Montessori programs to learn. This is a teacher training program, so it's going to be helping you out. It's going to also help out all the teachers who are Montessorians because you're going to be using this in your classrooms. And definitely, it's going to be helpful for all our parents. Now, if you're new to this methodology, let me tell you, Montessori method was developed by Dr. Maria Montessori. She's a physician, she's an educator in the early 1900s. So her method is considered as the Montessori method. It is an educational approach that focuses on hands-on learning. When Dr. Maria Montessori focused on giving children hands on learning, she believed that the child would learn the best when they're engaged in active, creative, and purposeful place. Now, this is the principle that we adapt in every area of our Montessori class. And in this entire segment, we're going to be talking about the math curriculum by giving various examples, and we will see how this approach is taken forward towards the Montessori curriculum. Okay, so let's keep in mind that this path is not linear. We're only going to start on some lessons, and that too, the lessons are given in order. And some of them, they can be shared and they can be practiced when the children are working with you simultaneously. Okay, the approach is totally different on how exactly that we are going to be working in our classroom. Okay, so let's get started with the understanding about mathematics. Okay, so when I ask you a question like, what is math, or what does it come to your mind, this is what we actually get it into our mind, right? We imagine about numbers, we imagine about shapes, we imagine the different calculations, the computations, right? So everything in and around of arithmetic, algebra, geometry, calculus, differentiation, right? All these things, no matter it is the applied mathematics or it is the real mathematics, we would be working on all of that. But to a younger child, to an infant, do you think that these are the ones that they come to their mind? Definitely not, right? For them, math is all around in their day-to-day activities. For example, when somebody asks them, how old are you? The child starts to reply, I'm 5 years old, 4 years old, 3 years old. We're talking about the years, we're talking about the age. Age is again math. When we talk about, like, how long does it take for you to reach your school? Maybe 30 minutes, 20 minutes, or 1 hour, 2 hours, right? How far is your school? We talk about the distances. That's again math. When were you born? Maybe 2nd October, 3rd October. Again, the dates is all again math, right? So math is all around, and the child is heard it somewhere from the people around them in their environment, in their day-to-day conversations. Now, I can give you more and more examples like that. See, for example, when we go for a grocery shopping, right? We buy certain objects. Again, there is an exchange of money. You buy, right? The child learns about counting. The child learns about the computations over there, but he still does not have the understanding about the relationship between a quantity and a number. But the child definitely understands that there is some kind of an exchange that is actually happening, right? So the child learns about the concept of buy and sell. That's again mathematics. We're not talking about how we compute. We're not talking about what is the numerical relationship. We're not talking about even the basic operational calculations. We're not talking about that. We're just generalizing. The child is introduced to math, right? When again like when they're looking at certain, maybe when you take them to shop, the child is attracted to a toy that is larger in size. Again, big and small, mathematics. Near and far, mathematics. Long and short is again considered to be as pre-mathematic, right? So number itself, it cannot be defined and understood of number grows from the experiences of the objects. Now, this is something that we need to understand about it. So, what we have to be working for the children, let me make it very clear. When you're working with children, the younger age children, right from 0 to 6 years, what are the major things that you need to be working is like you need to help them to count. When the child has the ability to count, you work on computing. When they're able to count and compute, then you help them to work on the numerical relationships. Now, these three are very important, right? Now, say for example, the number system itself, when I take it, how did it get created? It has created over thousands of years in an abstract invention, right? So it began with the realization of one and then more than one. Then you keep on adding. So that is how the number grows. You take with the basic one, then you add on to it, the number grows. Then you add another one, the number grows. You add another one, the number grows. And you will be able to see how the number is actually growing. Now, it is a marvelous thing to actually see that the child is now ready to understand this concept. From here is where we talk about arithmetic. This is from where we actually work and introduce the arithmetic to our children. So we help them to identify shape. We help them to work on numbers. Then we help them to learn the relationships and the attributes to use of numbers and symbols, right? And it is also shown that it is uh, the study of science is also in such a way that there are so many patterns which is included. Again, the solar system, if you see the celestial positions, if you see, everything is related to math. Children do ask us questions like, is it very important for us to learn math? Definitely yes, it is very essential, because it could be in any form that we are again working with math itself, right? So it can include patterns. So again, your math can include your numerical patterns, it can include abstract patterns, it can include even patterns of shapes and motions also. So, what do we work in our Montessori classroom? In our Montessori classroom, what we work is like it's not on all of that. We use some simple materials, we use basic materials, and we divide them into smaller groups. And it is presented to our child in the form of arithmetic, geometry, algebra, statistics, and calculus. Now, what we work over here, now, since we are working with the preschools, and if you're working with the primary schools, you will concentrate only on enumeration, decimal system, computation, arithmetic tables. You also introduce whole numbers, fractions, and positive numbers. Only these. Let me repeat one more time. If you are working with pre-primary or primary, you only work with numeration, decimal system, computation, arithmetic tables, whole numbers, fractions, and positive numbers. Now, this is what we give children right from 5 to 6. Again, the classification depends. Okay, the first 3 years you will only be working on the numeration, and then when the child is around like 4.5 or 5 years, that's when you get into computation, arithmetic tables, and so on. So, what is arithmetic? Now, let's understand a little bit more. In our practical sessions, what we work over here is like we go deeper when we talk about arithmetic, right? We work on how do you introduce the entire process of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Now, what we work in our training program is we help the students to teach the younger children with the help of Montessori materials. Okay, we start with preparing the environment. The students, when I say about the student, it is the trainee student who has taken up the course. They start to work on setting up a classroom, right? And then they have to set a classroom in such a way that when the child is entering into the class or to the environment, they should be naturally attracted to the signs of numbers, right? So math is also like a language, and it is a product of human intellect, I could say. So it is therefore a part of nature that we need to always include, is like, when you want to connect with the world, right? And the world is also contemplating with the universe and the factors of time and space. You need to put in a lot of efforts to make sure that the child is able to understand really very well. So Maria Montessori also took this idea, and she also called that the human has a mathematical mind. And this idea, she actually picked it up from the French philosopher Pascal. So what Dr. Montessori said was like mathematical mind is like a sort of mind which is built up with elasticity. That means the mathematical mind will tend to estimate, it will tend to quantify, to see identity. We see the similarities, we see what is so different and how the patterns are working, how to make an order, how to have sequence, and how to control error. All this is mathematics. Now, see how beautiful it is. We start with quantifying quantity, right? We need to see on quantity how big, how small. Quantity, we see identity. Are they identical? Are they similar? Is there a difference? What is the pattern like? How do we arrange everything in order? Does it make an order? Is there a sequence in the number? If it is not, how do we control that error? Now, all those things were some of the ideas that Montessori took it up. Now, as an infant and the young child was observing and experiencing all this from the world through his senses, slowly the child's abstract concepts and the qualities of the things in the environment started to blend very well. Right? So the child establishes the mental map which supports them to adapt to the environment, isn't it? So what we need to be working over here is like when you're making your lesson plans, we need to have a clear, precise, abstract ideas. Now, this is what we're going to be doing in our math lessons from the next session, wherein we take up a manipulative, we write a clear perspective of how this material needs to be introduced. When a teacher is writing that lesson plan with precise and abstract ideas, that is where you're giving them a possibility to help them grow their knowledge in that environment, right? So it is all going to start from there. Now again, how do we work? Now, what kind of a material that you will actually be working on? Okay, so now let me give you a briefer introduction about what kind of materials that we're going to be using in our mathematical concepts. Now, all that before that I spoke was just like a it was just like an introduction because you need to understand the concept of mathematics. So we have understood that it is all related to quantity, and then you bring the symbols into it, and then you start with the computation, right? So we need certain things to work with that. So what are they? They are our Montessori math materials. Now they will give an experience to every individual child when they're working individually, right? Now we also call them as teacher directed activities because when the teacher introduces the conception, the child also follows that activity as an individual, right? And sometimes we can also work with smaller groups, so you make small group lessons and eventually you take them towards being independent and the child working individually. Okay, going forward from here, how do I divide my lessons? How do I divide my lessons? Now, this is where we go deeper. Okay, I'm just giving you an overview, but in the further classes, we see every exercise is going to be one lesson for you. Okay, so we divide our entire exercises in arithmetic into two groups. The first group is called the sequential group. We divide it into multiple groups. Okay, we have something called a sequential group. We have a parallel group or a parallel work, we can say. And the third group is counting beyond 10. The fourth group is related to arithmetic tables. And the fifth group is called the passage to abstraction. So if we have a pen and pencil, you can start noting from here because this is where we begin our Montessori math arithmetic lessons. Okay, now what is the sequential work? Now, this sequential work, I can say this is the first group. So, note down. The first group is related to my numbers through 10. So, when we are working on exercises from numbers through 10, we work from numbers from 0 to 9 initially, and then we introduce the number 10, right? The child is only learning 0 to 9. That means our entire math, we have to be teaching the child that there are only 0 to 9 numbers. There is no other number apart from 0 to 9. This is very important. The more time that you put in helping the child to have a full understanding of numbers through 10, only then you will move to your second group. Until then, you will be focusing on the child will have to know the number, the child will have to know the quantity, the child will have to be able to associate a number to the quantity, the child will have to know what is before, what is after, what is in between within that number. The child will also have to know about performing simple exercises with 1 to 0 to 1, okay, 0 to 9, I could say. And then they have to also understand whether it is odd, whether it is even. If they have a full understanding right from numbers through 10, then is when you will introduce to the second group. And the second group is called decimal system. Please note down, the second group is called decimal system. Now, what do we give focus over here? In decimal system, we help the child to work on the hierarchy of the decimal system, like how the system functions, right? So they have to understand that, like, this is ones, and 10 ones will make 110, 10 tens will make 100, 10 100s will have to make 1000, right? So this is how it needs to be working on. So you can also take it as a story session to a child. This is one of the story that I've heard from one of the good Montessorian, and she had narrated the story, and I heard that, and I thought that I should be also sharing it with you. So it is like, there's a chocolate factory, and there are so many chocolates which is spread in the factory everywhere. Okay. And then the owner of the factory comes, and he wanted to show it to all the children, and children were very excited to see a factory completely filled with chocolates. Wherever you see, there were chocolates and chocolates and chocolates. Okay, then there was a big problem because people could not move, there was no space and all of that. Then they said, okay, why don't we, do some kind of an arrangement, another thing. And slowly, some children started taking individual chocolates. We call them as units. And they did not know numbers, right? So they knew only from 0 to 9, correct? Or they knew only from 1 to 10. So what they did was like, they took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and they started packing 1 to 10 chocolates. So we had a pack of 10, 10, 10, 10, 10 chocolates like that. And then again, they saw there was like, the factory still again with chocolates itself. And they did not know on anything on that. They started stacking this tens on one top of the other. So it became like a square. So it was bundled up. And that became like how many? They did not know to count. So we call it as 100, right? And then again, they started packing all the hundreds, and that became a cube kind of a thing. And this is how, you can also narrate a story to a child wherein they understand about how simple the hierarchy of the decimal system actually works, and how beautifully we use this in our classes through one of the material called golden beads. Okay, so we use this material golden beads, wherein the child will be able to see this hierarchy of the decimal system, and that's one of the most lovable exercises that I could always do it in our classes. Okay, so this is our second group. So we teach the children the hierarchy of decimal system. From there, you can move. Once they understand the decimal system, they understand the hierarchy, then you move to simple computation. So that's when you start with operations of arithmetic. Okay, then we work on the parallel grouping. Now in parallel grouping, what you do in the third group is like, you're still the counting the child is doing, but parallelly you have to start working on the third group. Now this is where we work on counting beyond tens. Now what is beyond 10? So that's when we include teens, tens, linear, skip counting, and all of that. And the last fourth group is related to arithmetic tables. Now is where you will introduce memorization of arithmetic tables to our children. The child is still working with decimal system. The child is still working counting beyond 10. But at the same time, you can also start working and helping the child to memorize the arithmetic table also. And at last, we will be working on passage to abstraction. Now, this exercises in this group will require a child to understand the entire process of arithmetic. They should know the tables for each operations. And if it overlaps, again, they will have to be redoing it. Okay. So once they know about the process of addition and the tables for addition, then you can start working on the other operations like subtraction, multiplication, division. You can start working on all of that. So this is what we are going to be learning in our upcoming training program. It's a 15-day program. This is one of the module, which we call it as a math module. Okay. So let me give you the list of exercises that we're going to be working. So as I mentioned earlier, this is just a path. Okay. So the path is not linear. I'm making it as simple as possible for you to give it in an order. Okay. So you have to practice it every day whenever you're doing it individually, or you're working somewhere in any other school as a teacher. But still, if you get an opportunity to work with the Montessori materials, I would always ask you to work. Okay. So before you introduce any of this, always go with pre-counting activities. Okay, so what are pre-counting activities? You all should be knowing, right? So like, right from the womb, we were talking about it. So I don't want to go deeper into it. So start with pre-mathematical conceptuals and then jump into Montessori materials. Okay, so let me quickly give you that introduction. So we are in numbers through 10. We call that as introduction to numeration. So what are the materials that we're going to be working on? So you will be learning, note down, you will be learning number rods. You'll be learning sandpaper numbers, number rods and numerals, or number rods and cards. We work on spindle boxes to introduce the concept of zero to child. We work on cards and counters to introduce even and odd to child. From there, we are going to the second stage. That is where you introduce place value and decimal system to our children. So, what are the different materials we use over here? We start with golden beads. Now, whenever you're working with golden beads, you need to also have a presentation tray. Okay. Once we introduce the golden beads to the child and the child has got the overview of the golden beads, we work on composition of quantities. Once the quantity is introduced, we work on introducing the numerals to the children and then composition of symbols. Then you work on associating the numbers to the quantity or the numeral to quantity. Now the child has understood all of that. They know about quantity, they know about numbers. Now to make sure that they understand about a little bit more, you can work with any kind of simple games like a bank game or anything, and you work on operations later. So this is where in operation section we work on addition, subtraction, multiplication and division. There are alternative materials to perform whatever I have spoken till now. That is for the decimal system. You can use a material called stamp game, and you can also introduce a small bead frame and large bead frame also. The third stage of the materials is related to your Montessori math linear counting. This is what I said. Some of the exercises we do sequentially, some of them we do parallelly, right? If you're following me in all my training programs, you would be knowing about it very well. So in linear counting, we work on tens boards, tens board, bead cabinets, hundreds boards. We work on these. And towards the fourth stage, as I said, we need to work on arithmetic tables or math tables. That is where related to our memorization. So for them, we use array of materials like addition rods, sorry, that is number rods for addition. We could also use short bead stair addition. We can work on addition snake game. We work on addition strip boards, subtraction snake game, subtraction strip boards. Then again, multiplication bead stair, multiplication boards, division boards, fraction boards. Okay, so they are amazing materials. If you are looking for a complete math counter, you can check out different websites. They give you about a list of materials that you can actually set it up in your Montessori classrooms. Okay, so in our training module we're going to extensively cover all this materials. We have both online and offline sessions also, and students can join to any of these lessons. It's especially, this is very useful for all the teachers who are looking up to ramp up their knowledge and to become a Montessorian or a Montessori teacher. It is definitely a good learning for all of you. Okay, so this is the introduction, guys. So I'm going to be seeing you in my next session, wherein we're going to go deeper into each one of those materials. And as I mentioned earlier, we're going to work on the lesson plans. We're going to be working on the abstract ideas. We're going to be working on the hands-on exercises on how these materials can be used with children, how it needs to be presented, if at all, if there is any age criteria, what is that age? If we have any error of control, how do we work on that? What is the purpose of this material? Does it have a direct impact, or what is that indirect impact that we're going to be seeing using this material is something that we're going to be diving deep in our training program. Okay, so that's our today's session, and I hope you got the gist of information and you're very much prepared about our tomorrow's session. This is going to be all that we're going to be talking up in the coming week. And be prepared. There's a lot of work, there's a lot of learning which is going to be happening in the coming week. Okay, so I'll see you soon with the next post. Until then, if you have any queries related to Montessori math or any of those lessons that I've actually mentioned in today's episode, you can always leave a comment below. I will reply whenever I definitely do get some time in. And in case if you have any post or any request that you request me to do or tell you about that material, please do write it in the comments and we will incorporate in our next lessons. So that's it for today. I hope this episode gave you a good insight of knowledge about what materials and how these Montessori math exercises can be used. It's just an introduction. There's so much to do on this. It's a 60-hour program that you need to be taking up to work on the Montessori materials on math especially. Okay, so thank you for listening to me, and um, that's it. Yeah, take care and have a great learning. I'll see you soon. Bye bye. God bless you.